Hello, welcome to Islamic Civilization, session 12 that deals with Islamic practices, the pillars of Islam, and this time we would focus on Zakah or charity in Islamic practices. So we talked about most of the practices. This is the third one, and we would talk one more. This is the fourth one. We would talk one more practice which is coming in the next session. So this is about Zakah, about charity, an Islamic practice, widely practiced in the Muslim world. And so stay tuned for the next one. That will be the last one, and that will be the pilgrimage or the Hajj going to Mecca. Okay, let's see what we have in this presentation. In terms of the objectives, still we are talking about Islamic practices or the 5 pillars of Islam, which are saying and believing in the Shahada. We talked about that. Praying 5 times daily. We talked about that also. Fasting in the month of Ramadan. We did that last time. And this time we would talk about giving charity. And next time we would talk about going on pilgrimage to Kaaba in Mecca. So still staying with the objectives. Giving zakah or charity, which is obligatory poor tax. That is the English translation, poor tax, although zakah is a form of charity. We will talk about the terms and conditions of zakah, and also another type of zakah called Sadaqa. That is also a charity, giving Sadaqa in charity, and that is voluntary charity as compared to the obligatory charity Zakah. So Sadaqa is voluntary. And then we would talk about the social benefits of charity. Giving zakah or charity purifies your wealth. That is the main theme in this session 12, that charity purifies your wealth. And it depends on how much you have. Whatever little you might have would stay clean and pure after you give charity on the annual basis or at the end of the year. Every year, Muslims pay charity, and they calculate their own charity, their own way. But there are rules. No matter how you do it, you follow the rules. And so after the giving of charity, out of your wealth, the wealth stays clean and purified. If not, it would be dirty money, it would be not good money, even though you earned it, the hard way and the lawful way. So let's see what we have in this presentation about zakah. Zakah purifies wealth, and that's the literal meaning, zakah, purification. Muslims give zakah or charity at a 2.5% annual charity or poor tax. That's the rate, 2.5% annually at the end of the year. And that charity is, or that poor tax is calculated on annual cash savings and commercial goods. So whatever savings you might have at the end of the year and the commercial goods and their wealth, you pay tax on that. And you pay that tax to the poor people, not to the government. Keep that in mind. Other sources of wealth would be commercial real estate and businesses that you might have. So whatever wealth you gain from that, you pay tax on that. Commercial crops and products also are taxed or taxable. Homes, personal homes or family homes, personal and family expenses, personal jewelry, those are exempted from zakah. So anything that a person or his or her family use for purely personal basis, then that would be something that is exempted from the Zakah tax. So keep that in mind. Everything is not taxable under the Zakah rules, and these rules are framed by the Sharia. Keep that in mind. This is we are talking about the Sharia laws, Islamic laws. Who pays how much and what, that would be determined by the Sharia law. But commonly, what happens if you have at the end of the year, over and above your personal expenses, if you have about $15 left in your account, you need to pay 2.5% tax on that. So it can be as low as 1,500 to 15 million, and so you pay 2.5% tax on that saving at the end of the year, and that saving or that tax goes to the poor people, not to the state. Muslims pay to the state also, to the federal and to the state governments, but at the same time they also pay to the poor people, and at the same time they also take care of their churches, mosques or masajid, mosques, the communal prayer places, they also take care of that. But keep in mind, this is the most important tax, the poor tax as some people call it, among the Islamic practices. So let's see what we have here. Zakah purifies wealth. Personal jewelry, as I said, that is exempted. No matter how much you have, if you use it for personal purposes, then that is exempted. Okay? Anything that you use, your car, automobile, or your house, that is exempted. The purpose behind giving zakah or charity. Muslims give zakah charity because this is the most repeated verse, or the most repeated verses in the Quran command Muslims to worship God, pray 5 times a day, and give zakah charity. This is, if you ask someone, a non-Muslim, what could be, you think, maybe the commandment for Muslims in the Quran. I don't know what they would be thinking. Maybe I don't want to say anything. But so think about the Islamic injunctions for the Muslims that are most repeated in the Quran are go pray daily to God, worship God 5 times a day as Muslims do, and give charity to the poor people in the community, in your neighborhood, in your family. And so those are the most, repeated commandments in the Quran, and they run as, in the Quran, aqimus salah wa atu zakah. Worship God and give charity to people. So I call it, pray and pay. So pray to God and pay to people. And so what happens through these 2 great commandments, one connects you to God, the other connects you to community, to the people. And that is how, Muslim, as you see them on a daily basis in Muslim countries, they go 5 times a day to pray, and then at the end of the year and throughout the year, they give charity to the poor people in their communities. So let's see. Giving charity to the needy is like worshiping God. That is also the Islamic sense of why they give charity, because that is a sort of a form of worshiping God. If you help a human being, it is you are praying or you are worshiping God. And so it is highly recommended and, in fact, obligatory form of Islamic practices to give charity. Okay, let's see what else. Zakah purifies wealth, and we would keep that for quite some time, this theme. Muslim gives zakah charity because It is God's commandment. And Muslim, in obedience to God's commandment, and this, as I said, the third obligatory pillar or practice of Islam. That's why Muslim give zakat, charity, because this is the third obligatory pillar or practice of Islam after the Shahada and the daily 5 prayers. Okay. It purifies your lawful wealth, and that is important to know, that one cannot pay charity on dirty money. This is not a scheme of laundering money. The wealth has to be a lawful wealth, gained and earned lawfully. So any money coming from drug money or gambling, or there's so many, illegal ways to earn money, that money, no matter how much one pays charity on it or zakah on it, it can never be purified, because it was gained, it was illegally gotten, and so that's why it can never be purified. It would stay dirty. So Muslims or anyone cannot give charity on dirty money. Okay. It gives you spiritual strength and purity. That's also related to the word zakah, the purification. It's not only the purification of the wealth of the person, but it's also the purification of the spirits and the mind and the head and heart of the person. So it strengthens person's spirituality, and it purifies him or her spiritually and mentally. Also, it creates good bonds between the rich people and the poor people in the community. So for whatever reason people are poor, that reason may be beyond your control. You cannot make everybody rich. You cannot, there have been poor people all along history. And I don't know, for how long poverty would stay with us as human beings. And even in the richest countries and people on planet Earth, you see beggars and poor people, and they live in very bad condition, and especially, poverty hits hard women and children. And so that even in this lone superpower, the United States of America, you have huge, big, poverty of people, and because of the poverty, people cannot get education, they cannot educate their children. And so, and even if you send children to school, that poverty gets them in different ways, and they stay behind the rest of the, the rich kids in the school. And so there are numerous ways, that poverty, creates problems in the community, in the society, and in the nation at large. So that's why, it's very important to help poor people. Yes, you could argue with me that no, it is the problem of the state, the problem of the country. I agree with you. It is the problem of the state and the country to take care of the poor people among us, but at the same time, if we as individuals take care of the poor people to whatever extent we can and in whatever manner we can, that helps a lot everywhere, in not only the United States, but also outside the United States. And so sometimes the immensity of poverty is so much that one individual or even a state cannot deal with it. And so that's why it's very important that everybody should try their best to give in charity and help people. And that would be also helping ourselves. The more we give, the more we get, and that is the motto behind the zakah, the Islamic charity. Let's see. Zakah purifies wealth. The rationale for paying zakah or poor tax is Allah, God, gives you the wealth, and you show your sincere gratitude to God, be thankful to God, by giving charity to the needy people. That's the rationale. Needy people have rights in your wealth. You may not realize it or recognize that fact, but in Islam, poor people have their right over the wealth of the rich people, to the extent that I said, 2.5% rate. So if Muslims do not give that 2.5% zakah, they are really withholding that right of the poor people, and that is not good, and God would ask them. The more you give, the more you gain. And that is a promise of, divine promise of God. The more you give, the more God would give you. And that is, the rationale behind paying the zakah, because nobody ever went poor by giving charity. Nobody got bankrupt by giving charity. Okay? So not giving zakah is displeasing God for a simple reason, that if this is as important as anything else, and that is, giving zakah is divine commandment, as I said. So this is just like worshiping God. This is like the shahada, the belief in God. This is like going on pilgrimage. This is like fasting. So giving zakah is divine commandment, and not obeying that commandment is disobeying God. And the disobedience of God brings damnation upon person, not only here, but also in the hereafter. So Muslims, they give zakah because that is God's demand, that is God's commandment, and they obey God. And the best way to do that is to do it in the most sincere way, willingly and most sincerely. And that intention behind giving, that sincerity behind giving, is also a big theme in Islam. So one must do it not unwillingly, but willingly, cheerfully, and with sincerity. And then your wealth would be purified, and God would give you more. So back again to the motto of zakah: the more you give, the more you gain. The more you give to people, the more God would give you. That is the motto, and that is the purpose behind zakah. So keep that in mind. The more you give, the more you get from God. Let's see what else. Zakah purifies wealth again. Like all pillars of Islam, zakah is, as I said, commandment, obligation from God. Muslims obey God's commandments without interference from the state or outside enforcement. And we see throughout the Muslim world, a lot of states are corrupt. So those corrupt states, they cannot enforce Islam, nor they should be doing it anyway. Or one should not be just waiting for the state or outside enforcement agencies to make them pay zakah. That would be, I think, too late and not a good idea. So the state police or the state, which are all, corrupt, to be honest with you, in most of the Muslim countries. So they should not meddle or interfere in people's personal lives and in people's relationship with God. So without any interference or, force from the state, and especially the corrupt states, or without any, outside enforcement or interference, the Muslims obey God's commandment and pay zakah regularly on their own. Okay? And so that's why it's important to note that. Individual conscience and honesty work best. So if a person is honest, if a Muslim is honest, he or she work hard throughout the year, made money, whatever that amount may be, and at the end of the year, they would calculate on their own. So there is no priest or pastor to come to their home and check how much money they have in the bank account, how much land they have, how much crops or cattle or any source of wealth they have. So there is no priest or pastor or any agency to come and calculate or make you to calculate, and get that tax from you. No, it is up to the individual Muslim. His or her own honesty, sincerity, that at the end of the year they would calculate on their own, this is what I have, this much I owe to God, and whatever you owe to God, give it to the people, the poor people in your community, and we will talk about who is eligible for your charity, zakat charity. Okay, let's see. So Muslims obey God's commandment, and they calculate zakah, and you calculate zakah, or they calculate zakah on the wealth privately. You just do it, on your own, without any outside interference, and give that charity to the needy people very confidentially. So you calculate your zakah privately in the safety and protection and privacy of your home, and then give it to the poor people very confidentially. Okay? Do not gain any fame and do not cause any shame. Meaning, when you give this money, this should not be for any show off. One should not gain any fame or name by giving money to the poor people, nor they should cause any shame to the poor people. So you give this money so confidentially to the person that you think he or she is poor, needy, they have children, a lot of children to take care of, or their resources are not much to take care of the whole family, and so you approach the family or the person or persons and give them very confidentially. So do not advertise the poverty of the people whom you are giving this money, nor you should advertise yourself as a giver, nor make them be known in the community that they're poor, and so that's why you are giving them money. So it should be done very discreetly, very confidentially. If you approached a person with money, charity money, and he or she does not need it, you thought the person is poor, but thank God he's not or she's not, then they should refuse that money. They should not take that money, because that money belongs to the poor people. It was very nice on your part that you thought of them, you went to them, and they should not take that money if they do not deserve that money. So poverty is the condition for this. You give it to the poor people, and only poor people can get that money, that is charity, and they should not if they do not deserve that money. So there are those rules and conditions with it. If a person gives this money to gain any name or political credit or whatever, that would be punishable by God. And so it is a good thing to give money, but if one gives this good money and one does this good thing, good deed with the wrong intentions, that is more damaging than not giving at all, I would say that. So there should be sincerity behind it. There should be confidentiality behind it, and the person who receives this money should be given this money in such a way that his poverty is not advertised, and he is or she or the family is not embarrassed. I think that's clear, and let's move on further. Muslim pays zakah, poor tax, and that is obligatory charity, and it is done, it is given directly. That's the most preferred way, is to give it directly to the poor people, especially orphans in your community or widows in your community who do not have any source or resource of income. You can start with your own relatives and neighbors, okay? But you cannot give this money to your parents, nor to your children, nor husband can give this money to wives. And there is a reason. Why not? Because their financial needs are our responsibilities to begin with. So parents are our financial responsibility. Our children and our wives, I'm not talking from a husband point of view, okay? So they are our financial responsibility, and we should never keep them below poverty line so that they would be eligible to receive charity, okay? So keep that in mind. It is below the dignity of your parents and children and wife to give them that charity money. It is below their dignity, and so that is not good. So that's why one cannot give this money to parents, children, or wives. They can give it to anyone else, brother, sisters, and their children, uncles and aunties. So look for, first among your relatives, and if they're all, Bill Gates, very rich, then fine, give it. There would be someone in the community, and if all your community and neighborhood is rich, then you need to move on, out and give it to somebody else. Definitely there would be, people, a lot of poor people where you live. And I've seen this, in Muslim countries and other countries also. You have these great, looking neighborhoods with, mansions and houses and palaces. And boy, just a few, maybe hardly a mile away, you see these shanty towns and, slums, and people and children, women, they live there. And you just cannot imagine, the two worlds that there are, the great palaces, and at a stone's throw, you see these shanty towns and these, slums that one, cannot imagine to live with. But there are, thousands upon thousand people they live in slums. And so Muslim countries have that problem. Almost every country has that problem. And so if your relatives are rich, that's wonderful. Give it to your neighbors. If they're rich, then move on to somebody else. And definitely in any country, every country, there are a lot of poor people. Okay, let's see. Now, I said you cannot give this money to parents, children, and wives because they are our financial responsibility to begin with. Now, the best money that we can spend is the one that we spend it on our family. And from a Muslim female or woman point of view, is the best money that husband can spend is the money that he spends on his wife. And that is true because in the hadith, in the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are these words that use that the best money that you can spend is the money that you spend on your family. And there are other places where it says the best money that you can spend is the one that you spend on your wife. So of course this is, the Muslim man is addressed. The more you spend on your family, the better for you. And you need to keep your family in good financial condition. And whatever is left at the end of the year, you need to give it to the poor people, so that your family would be in good condition, and the poor people would also be not so much suffering in the community. So let's see. Zakah and Sadaqa can be given to, this is another form of that I'll talk about, charities, the Sadaqa. This money, the charity money, this can be given to charitable organizations, but they have to be very credible because there are a lot of crooks out there. In the name of charitable organizations, there are a lot of cheaters. So they have to make sure that your money goes to the right people. The best charities are those that promote education and training and skills, in the community or in the neighborhood or in the country. So those charitable organizations that promote education and training, they're mostly, the good ones. And there are others who take care of the natural disasters. So those are also very good. Beware of the state corruption. I don't know how to overemphasize, that point. Beware of state corruption. And there are, if you give it to the state and the state organization or to the church, to the mosque, you really don't know where that money goes, okay? So the best way is to do it yourself, give it to yourself. Mosque and religious institutions, they should not get the zakah money. However, they can get it only if they are really in dire need. Because keep in mind, Muslim charity is for poor people. Now, what about the mosque and the other religious institutions? How do we maintain those ones? Well, we maintain those, out of our pocket, of course, but not out of the pocket of the poor money. Remember that money, charity money, belongs to, especially the zakah money, that belongs to the poor people. So that's the reason one should take care of the mosque and religious institutions on their own and separately. But do not mix the two money. The poor money goes to the poor people. Okay. I hope that point is clear. Okay, here is an interesting thing. Rich wives can give zakah to poor husbands. And yes, in Islamic countries under the Sharia it can happen. And it happens. And that is, in Muslim marriage or the Sharia law of marriage, is as such that under Sharia, a husband cannot take advantage of his wife's financial, wealth or property. So a Muslim husband, by marrying his wife, he cannot help himself to her property. The property that she already owns from her parents, or she made her own property. So upon marriage, a Muslim woman, whatever she has in savings, in property, and whatever she owns from her parents or siblings, that is her money. And her husband cannot help himself to that money. That money belongs to him. So upon marriage, under the Sharia law, a woman does not share her wealth, her money, her savings, her jewelry, her land with her husband. Her husband does not have any share in her property, in her land, and her jewelry or wealth. But she has share in his property, in his money, in his savings. Even if she is working and making maybe more money than he does on monthly or annual basis, still her money is her money and his money is also her money. And that is the Sharia law. Why is that? Because Islamic law, the Sharia, gives women financial protection. Just in case he dies, or God forbid something happens to him and there is divorce, for example, it can happen. And so at the death of the husband or the divorce, she would have a complete control of her wealth. Her land that she owned previous to the marriage or made during the marriage, or whatever she inherited from her father, that is her land, her property, and her husband cannot own it. She can own from her husband. She can have share in his share, but he cannot have share in her share. And so that is the reason it happens quite, sometimes in Muslim families, that the husband is poor and the woman, the wife, is rich. So this rich wife, when she calculates her annual zakah, poor tax, she can give that money to her husband if he's poor, or to his parents if they are poor, or to his siblings if they are poor. And that is how it happens in a lot of Muslim families, that the woman is rich and the husband is poor because she comes from a rich family and he belongs to a poor family. But by marrying her, her wealth does not become his wealth. It's the other way around. His wealth can become her wealth, but not the other way around. Okay, I hope that point is clear when it comes to the Sharia Islamic law and its protection of financial protection of women in Islam. Okay. So rich wives can give zakah to poor husband. Muslim can give zakah to that zakah charity to non-Muslim orphans and widows living among them. Yes, just because they are not Muslim does not disqualify them. Still, they are poor and it is based on need. They are poor and they are widow, and if they do not have any other means, then Muslims must take care of the non-Muslim children, or especially orphans and widows and the poor living among them. Poor people in other communities can be given this zakah charity money, and that happens a lot. And you don't have to be a Muslim for that. When we foreigners come to United States, become U.S. citizen, work, make money, but back home our brother and sisters and uncle and aunties, they stay poor as they were, or as we were, with them. But now we are in better condition, financial condition. We send money back home to our brothers and sisters and relatives, and that for that, you don't have to be a Muslim to do that. Non-Muslims, they do that also. So Hindus, they do a lot. So it is a universal problem, and so we must take care of this across regions and religion and races. Okay. However, when people in rich country, they give charity to people in poor countries, there should never be any strings attached. So that is also, an Islamic point or condition, that you give without restrictions. You give without any conditions. So you cannot tell a person, take this money, but you have to do this or that thing for me. Or you give money, a rich country gives money to the people of a poor country, and in return, the rich country or state demands certain actions on part of the state of the poor people. That is completely wrong, and that's why foreign aid that goes to poor countries from rich countries, they are always attached with strings, and that is a wrong thing to do. But then again, we're talking of the Muslim Islamic concept of giving charity, giving foreign aid to the needy countries or to the needy states and people, and there should never be any strings attached. So just like state to state, similarly person to person, there should not be any strings attached. If you give, give without any conditions and give it sincerely. And do not receive any reward or something from the person or favor from the poor people in return. Okay. The Quran enjoins helping orphans. I was in Kabul and I took these photographs, and boy, there were a lot of children engaged in child labor, as you see on the right, and the children selling at least bread in the streets. And because there are a lot of orphans. That country, Afghanistan, since 1979, when the Soviets invaded that country, till this day, and we are already in 2012. So for more than 30 years, close to about 30 years, that country has been in perpetual warfare. And they say more than 2 million people have been killed, and so mostly men in warfare. And so what would happen to their mothers, sisters, wives, their children? And so somebody has to take care of them, and if not, then those children would grow up in poverty, without any education, illiterate, and somebody else might be brainwashing them and getting them to do the most horrible things. And that also we see in poor country, that how poor children can be manipulated and can be brainwashed for doing evil things, and we see the consequences of those evil things. So I wanted to share with you some pictures that I took in Afghanistan. Okay, let's see. Quran commands helping the orphans. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, he grew without parents. As you know, his father had died 2 months before his birth, and he was hardly 6 years old that he lost his mother also. So, and the Quran makes great references. God makes references and commandments in the Quran, asking people, help the poor people, help the orphans especially, and even God, talking to the Prophet Muhammad and says, I found you a poor yatim, a poor orphan, and I helped you. And so, which means that you should also help poor children. You should also help orphans. And that was one of the great things that the Prophet taught Muslims again and again, that we must take care of orphans, children living among us without any, parents, without any resources. And he would go to great, lengths of taking care of the orphans in the community. And he always encouraged, and ordered Muslims to go and take care of the orphans living among them. Okay, so that's a big theme in the Quran, taking care of the orphans, helping orphans, big theme in the Quran and big theme in Islamic civilization. Okay, let's see what else. So Muslims also give Sadaqah, and that is the voluntary charity which can be done anytime. So you don't have to wait till the end of the year. So Sadaqah is that charity which is voluntary and it can be given anytime. So this is another form of charity. Remember, the Zakah is obligatory. Sadaqah is voluntary. There is a difference between the two of them, and both are, given by Muslims on their own times. So voluntary charity, Sadaqah, that can be given anytime. So beside obligatory annual Zakah, Muslim also give Sadaqah anytime. For doing good, there is no time. Any time is great. Voluntary bonus charity, so to speak, on any occasion. And I underline any occasion for Sadaqah, for this type of Islamic charity, because Islam teaches people, Muslims, that you should help people so that God would help you. And so it works this way. The more you help people, the more God would help you. And so it takes different forms and ways to show your gratitude, thankfulness to God. It is quite common among Muslims that if you got a job and you got your first check or first salary, monthly wages or weekly, that monthly wage or salary or check, the first one is given in charity, and that is the Sadaqah form of charity. Because this is the first money that you got from God, and you give it to the people, and you show your thankfulness and your gratitude to God for giving you the job. Something good happened to you. In other cases, if you got a car, brand new car, and you are very happy with it, or you bought a house and you are very happy with it, or anything that gives you happiness, you bought it, take some money and give it to poor people. Give some charity because God gave you that happy occasion. Sometimes it also happens, and this is one of the best things. A new baby is born in the family. That is the best occasion to give charity. Yes. And, with sincerity and cheerfulness. You got a new baby, go ahead, take some money and distribute it among the poor children in the community, in the neighborhood, or just give it to anyone that seems to be poor. So there are a lot of occasions. You just feel happy. For example, one day, you feel happy, and to show your gratitude, just take some money out and feed a poor person, simple as that. Another day you feel depressed. Boy, that is the greatest occasion to give charity. You feel depressed, get out, take $5 or $10, take someone, a poor person, to McDonald's and feed a poor person. Or give, charity to a poor, in the neighborhood. I mean, whatever you can, if you feel happy, do it. If you feel depressed, do it. If you have a great, occasion, like you bought a house, you bought a car, go and give charity. Other times, God forbid it, you got into car accident. Oh yes, that's also another great occasion to give charity. It could have been worse. And even if it is worse, God forbid it, even then that is the best time to give charity. And so there is this in Islamic civilization, in Islamic spirit, and Islamic, I won't make it a law, it's not a law, but it is an Islamic way of showing your gratitude to God for giving you the happy occasion. And even if the occasion is not so happy, a depressed one, even then you show to God gratitude, thankfulness, anytime, and whatever the occasion, give charity. And it has great blessings. Giving charity has great rewards from God. So let's see further what we have. So that charity, Sadaqah, can be cash or can be kind. You know, you give food in terms of kind. You give food, bread, or whatever you can, you know, or maybe fruits to poor people or to their children. If you don't have cash or you don't want to give cash, that would be another one. Give food, or you give your time. And that brings great divine blessings and help to you. If you share, you know, your time with poor people, giving them education, teaching you the poor children in the neighborhood, and you give your own time, that is the best type of a charity, and a very good charity. It protects you and your family from evil. Yes, evil is always lurking around in our lives. And giving charity, whether Zakat charity or the Sadaqah charity, voluntary charity, it keeps the evil away from you and your family. So that's another, you know, good encouragement. Also, inculcate the habit of giving in your children. So when you give, it's also good that you ask your child to go out and give this money to the poor people, or take them with you. Take them with you, and they should see you that you give this money in a very discreet, confidential way, and teach them also not to advertise the poverty of the people, and do it very discreetly, very confidentially. But the children, they must learn this. And the best way for them to learn is that you show to them. You take them with you or give them money, go and give that kid, you know, he seems to be a poor, give that $5 or $10, you know, to the poor kid and let him buy whatever he wants to buy. Or if that is not appropriate to give cash to, you know, a kid, maybe you can give him or her, you know, stationery, or ask for books, you know, notebook, or whatever little, you know, whatever you can give, give. And so you show your children also that they must give, because after you, they would be the one taking care of the poor people. And when they take care of the poor people, you would get your reward. Islamically speaking, again, you will get your reward even if you are in the grave. And so that blessing and that reward would reach you in the hereafter when your children give. And this is, there is also a form of charity is called Sadaqa Jariyah, the continuous charity. You make a hospital, for example, if you can, or donate money to the hospital, or donate money to whatever charitable, you know, organization or any institution that would help people. And this, the more the people get help out of that charity, the more you would get reward here and in the hereafter continuously, as long as that charity, you know, is continued. Okay, let's see what else we have. All right, again, Sadaqah, voluntary charity. Various forms of giving Sadaqah charity. You can help run soup kitchens, feed the needy, very common thing and the most needed thing, and one should do it. Guard goat, camel will also do it. Yes, you can give a goat, you can give a sheep to poor people to, you know, slaughter and eat, you know. And there are children, a lot of children throughout the world, they don't get enough protein, and that would be your way of taking care. Volunteer time to teach, you know, poor people. Give health care to the needy people. Donate blood, also very Islamic thing to do. Donation, blood donation. You can donate car, you can donate your clothes, you can donate your old books if you don't need them. Look around, you know, our home. You know, so many things there are, you know, give them, and give them with good sincerity. Give whatever you can, but give it regularly. That's also the Islamic way of going with charity. Whatever little you can give, give. Don't be shy of the stuff is not much, you know. if you have that little thing to give, give it, and give it regularly. The more you do it regularly, the better for the community and the better for you too, because you would not be overwhelmed, you would not be overburdened. So it's good to give little by little, but do it, regularly, and that is how you teach your children also. So when they grow up, God willing, they would continue the charitable work and the charity after you. Okay, let's go further. Again, Sadaqah and the benefits, especially, children, they benefit the most. And boy, you see that everywhere. Children, I call them, the national security in future. Any nation, national security depends on the children, because these would be, the one who would grow up later on and become mothers and fathers and workers and, the national force. And that would be true of any country, any state, any nation. You don't have to be a Muslim for this. You can help children across races and region and religions. So there you have, I thought that was a very beautiful picture of children, Afghan children. All right. You can give charity to victims of national disaster or natural disaster rather. So give Sadaqah in emergencies, and there are a lot of them throughout the year. Okay. Help your community. Feeding your community is great charity. Yes. It can, it takes, there are so many forms and ways to help people, and, thank goodness there are, throughout the state and the country, there are people who take care of other people, and that's wonderful. Give Zakah or Sadaqah in emergencies, and I think that was in Bangladesh one time, big flooding, and people, do give. Yes. Here is looks like a shelter, yes, and that would be another good place to go and give whatever you can, food, cash, whatever. Waqf, another form of Islamic charity. So the first one was Zakah, the second one was Sadaqah, and this is a Waqf, and that is like a perpetual charity. So madrasa schools, they are built and run by individual families, and this one Bini Yusuf in Tunis, and that is also a very good thing. Some of these schools, they have their own hospitals. They have their own hospital, they have their own libraries, and so throughout the Islamic world, it has been a sort of a great charity that individual families, they would go and build schools and build hospitals, clinics, and then engage teachers and pay for the teacher salaries and pay for the doctor's salaries, and that is how they take care of the poor people, the common people living in the neighborhood. Okay, let's see what else. Waqf, Islamic charities or Islamic endowments as sometimes called. This is a 16th century Ottoman queen, a Muslim queen from the Ottoman Empire. In fact, she was the wife of Solomon the Magnificent, a great king ruler of the Ottoman Empire. And what she did, she constructed this public bath for people to come and clean themselves, and then they can go to the masjid, to the mosque, and pray or whatever they want. So this was her way of showing, care for the people by, constructing, building public bath for people in a city in Turkey, 16th century, and that is still there, and it works in function there. I think they restored it. So Queen Roxolana, that is her charitable public bath. Spending Sadaqah on schools. This is a picture I took, pictures I took in Kabul. And so these children have started again, going to schools after the end of the Taliban rule. Thank goodness there are schools almost everywhere. Not really in great conditions, but still, you see daily in the city of Kabul and other major cities in Afghanistan, you see these children, going, and you feel so good about it, to schools. And so it's a very, a wonderful type of a feeling when you go to the streets and you see children in the morning going to schools. And so that's what, where I took this picture, And in Kabul city itself, the schools are run in shifts. So these children that are going in the morning, they would be out of school in 5 hours, and another batch of students would be going about 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. and they would be out of the school by about 7 p.m. and then another group of children will be going even in those that are safe neighborhood. They can go even nighttime. So 2 shifts are quite common now in Kabul schools, especially in the crowded schools of Kabul city. Okay, let's see what else we have. So spend Sadaqah, charity on your schools. This was a UNICEF school in Kabul that, I asked someone to take, picture, my picture along with the students, and I hope they built that school. It was under construction at that time. That was 2004, and I hope it's built. It's finished, the building. Help the elderly and children as also, and poverty is the oldest universal problem. And so that'd be another great thing to do. Help the elderly and the children. Give animals in Sadaqah. Also, you can do that. Give a goat or sheep if you want to, or a camel. If you have one, you can do that too. Here comes a reaction report at you. Okay, write brief notes on the rationale or the purpose of giving Sadaqah in Islam or Zakah in Islam. The difference between Sadaqah and Zakah. The terms and condition of Zakah. The impact of Zakah or Sadaqah on society. So, those are the simple things that you can write about. And let's get to review what we have in review. I hope we covered quite some stuff. Islamic practices we've been talking about. And this time we talked about Zakah charity, or the poor tax that some people call it. Right? And it's on an annual basis, 2.5% on all your savings and earnings. And it is commanded by God in the Quran. And there is voluntary giving, the Sadaqah voluntary, and you can do that anytime, on any occasion if you want to, and we should. And it has great impact on the society. And so you can, talk to me about it or write to me about more. If you have any question, any comments, please, go to Lawlima, check your assignments, and send me a message. So send me any message that you have about the assignments, and God be with you. Aloha.